feel like Kobe in the fourth quarter.
This is the Dane Moore NBA podcast. We are brought to you by Prize Picks. Coming to you late Wednesday night. It's April 30th. Whew, I just got back to my hotel from Crypto.com Arena. We're recording this right after the game. I'll be joined by Kyle Theige here in a second. The Wolves take down the Lakers in 5 games. We'll get into all of that on this episode. This episode is brought to you by Falling Knife Brewing Company, and we got round 2, which means there will be more watch parties at Falling Knife. And it just all seriousness, you got to do this one time. If you're in Minneapolis, you're in Minnesota, you got to come down, go to Falling Knife. Do that. If you're watching on YouTube right now, you could see the TV truck they have out there, the full on setup they have for these Wolves games. They have the tap room inside with the game on the projection screens, but the real deal is outside. TV truck out there, sound on. Come to Falling Knife for game 1, 2, whatever. We'll get the schedule here shortly for round 2 of the playoffs, but go to Falling Knife, watching the TV truck outside with a bunch of Wolves fans. Bring a lawn chair and enjoy it. That's Falling Knife Brewing Company in Northeast Minneapolis. All right, I got Kyle Theige here with me for the pod. He was on the injured reserve with an illness for tonight's game, so you weren't in LA for this one, stayed back home. What is your viewing experience for that look like? Are you like in this dark purple room that you're in right now? Do you look at your phone? Are you drinking? Like what did tonight look like for you?
Toughest 3.5 hours of Abby's life for sure. The room is purple. It's sponsored by NyQuil. I just want anyone who's watching on YouTube that about 40 minutes into this, when you see me start just chugging narcotics, it is not anything fun. But that was
NyQuil. You need to say it, dude. You need to say it.
Oh, yeah, NyQuil. Yeah. Okay, sorry.
He just showed his NyQuil shot glass.
I'm trying to keep it down. Honestly, watching that game, and we'll get into everything about it and the just weirdness of the shooting performance and the X factor that I identified before this series started, finally showing up and having a big game on a national stage. But
who is that?
Rudy Gobert.
Oh yeah, I don't remember what your X factor was. Narcotics, X factors. What are we?
We're killing it right now. Injured reserve. I thought there's moments in time in life where you look forward to something, and you never know if you're gonna get it. And then even up 3-1, like there was parts of me, and I said this to you and Britt on Sunday, like LeBron has done it before, right? And like you're just like, can they do it? Can they do it? And then to do it, I fired off some tweets and I had the receipts pulled, but I didn't feel the way I felt after that Nuggets series, because it was so, and I mean, that was a battle, 7 games, whatever, but it was so evident in what became a gentleman's sweep that the Minnesota Timberwolves, despite being a 6 seed, were just far superior in pretty much every category, whether it be starting 5, bench, coaching staff, front office, ownership, mascot, fans, whatever, like celebrities. Like they just 1 through 8, sometimes 9, just outplayed the Lakers in every game. And even tonight, when the Lakers started slow and then kind of found one last punch to throw, I mean, it was the worst shooting performance I've ever seen from the Timberwolves. And for them to just shrug it off and still have the poise to be like, all right, cool, we'll win in another way, led by Rudy Gobert, the Dragon. Just a fascinating game 5. They deserved all their flowers, and they're a real threat. Despite 8 months ago when we did the Karl Anthony Towns trade pod, they have once again reformed themselves into a different version of a Dragon that can really make significant noise in the Western Conference.
Yes. I mean, it's fitting or like not fitting. I can't really tell that they have this terrible shooting performance, which we'll talk about. Yet Rudy Gobert is their offense, and somehow that that worked. I mean, let's start with Rudy. I mean, entering game 5, so 4 games, Rudy Gobert had scored 14 total points and had 25 total rebounds. Didn't get hurt. I mean, it wasn't playing 36 minutes a game. The Lakers weren't playing a center in this series, so the Wolves could get away without having Rudy out there, and they often did in those first 4 games because they weren't getting an offensive impact from him exclusively defense. They didn't need Rudy Gobert. They needed Rudy Gobert tonight. And so again, after 14 total points, 25 total rebounds the first 4 games, sorry. That's averages of 3.5 points per game and 6.25 rebounds, shooting 31% from the field. Those are Rudy's stats coming into this. He has 27 points on 12 of 15 shooting tonight and 24 rebounds. The Wolves won the 39 minutes he was on the floor by 18 points, which means they lost the 9 minutes he sat by 11 points. You remember last year, I was thinking about this all game. The Wolves were actually a good fourth quarter team last year. This year they weren't, but a staple of the Wolves being a really good fourth quarter team last season and closing teams down was a year ago. Rudy Gobert would just elevate in winning time. Mm-hmm. Defensively, a lot of times that's when we would see him get out on switches on Steph or whatever, making plays at the rim defensively, rebounding, whatever it was. He elevated his game when it mattered most. And I have come to appreciate that is an attribute that Rudy Gobert has, and it's part of the reason he'll be a Hall of Famer, someday. I did not expect that to happen in this series on a more macro level, in a game that was functionally the fourth quarter of this series, that Rudy was going to be able to ratchet it up, 4 or 5. I don't even know how many degrees he ratcheted this up, because this was out of nowhere. Scored, I think he had 11, 13 points in the first quarter. It was right away. A little bit, the Lakers were a little bit more engaged on the ball on the perimeter with Ant, showing even more there, which made sense, right? If you're the Lakers, Rudy hasn't done anything. We're going to kind of leave that role more open, but he and they read the game and found Rudy. It wasn't just offensive rebounds that he was putting back. That's basically was his entire offense through the first 4 games of the series. It looked all night like what the best moments or games or quarters offensively from Rudy Gobert have looked like, packed into 39 minutes tonight, and 27 points and 24 rebounds. It's you can't not appreciate him, and it's so fitting that he does this right when he seemed like the lowest, or the least worthy of appreciation. Your thoughts on Rudy?
It's courtesy of the great Aaron Gleeman on Twitter, but Rudy Gobert is the first player with 25 or more points and 20 or more rebounds while shooting 75% or better from the field in the playoffs since Shaq did it for the Lakers in Game 4 of the 2004 Finals. I was watching it at home, as people listening to this can tell, and it was the TNT call. And at halftime, Shaq had literally kind of choked and was like, I can't believe he's doing this. And after the game, and that kind of goes back to when I teased the X Factor thing. I mean, I thought Rudy Gobert would be an X Factor in this series, but it was more of a, can you imagine with Wolves, Lakers, all those games are going to be on the brightest stages. They're not going to be on NBA TV. If that man can kind of like reshape the narrative. And those first 4 games, the stats showed that when he was isolated against Luka or against LeBron, he was holding his own, but everyone would always just think about the clip last year when Luka gets him in Game 2, and it just goes super viral, and it just, Rudy has all the quotes after practices this series about, 800 things go well and they don't get viral and clipped, but that one thing goes against me. And then in the biggest moment, when everyone else on the team is essentially giving you a C- performance other than Julius, Rudy Gobert was far and away the best player in a closeout game on TNT in front of Shaq and Charles and Kenny against Luka Doncic. I mean, it was less than 12 months ago that man Luka motherfucked Rudy the whole way down the court, and it was like, man, how do you not turn your cell phone off? And for him to turn it around, I mean, they don't even get close. We'll get into the 3-point shooting. They don't even get close to winning that game without everything he did. And I've always talked about the culture, and I know post game there's a lot of questions to Ant and Julius and Nas about, earlier this season you had made some comments. Maybe you can't always talk to one another, and now you guys can talk to one another. But there was a play early in the first when Dante subbed in, and he threw like a lob to Rudy, and Rudy didn't go up to get it. He just kind of did like the on his tippy toes thing, and Dante just called him out like in the moment and be like, dude, you got to go get that. Like, we're going to find you. Like, you got to. And from there on, I think 3 plays later, like, Rudy had a tip dunk where he flexed. And it just, those guys all were cohesive in the way that they could tell one another, like, hey, you're fucking up. Like, go get this. I got you, but go get it. And he was truly phenomenal. And the Lakers had no answer for him. Thought it was wild that JJ Redick didn't even try to break glass in case of emergency and throw Jackson Hayes out there. But you took a small team, a small roster that was playing small ball, that had tired legs, and Rudy just dominated them at every chance he could on the offensive boards, while also playing really good defense. He got a couple guys on good blocks and good.
Great.
And it was just, he's a 4-time Defensive Player of the Year. He's going to make the Hall of Fame. I don't remember all of his Utah Jazz games, but I mean, that goes up there in the moment and being a clinching series game. It's got to be one of the, if not the best games of Rudy Gobert's career.
Yeah, they dared him. They dared him all game, all series, really, to do what he says he needed to do before the series, right? And what does Rudy say all the time? I need to dominate. I need to dominate. If they're going to go small, I need to dominate. And he did it through the first 4 games. And so the Lakers, JJ Redick, I think, again, turned that up even more. They don't start Jackson Hayes in this game. They exclusively play small ball for the entirety of the night, where it's Finney Smith or Vanderbilt or even LeBron, at the 5. And that, if you're going to play Rudy Gobert and you're going to win, requires him to dominate, at least for like a period of the game where that forces them to make some sort of change. It was 4 quarters, and we then learned that they didn't have another gear of something to change to. He completely controlled a game that was out of control in so many other ways. And I just want to say also, just I just appreciate the way he handled his post-game press conference. He got teed up by me, including, to kind of go off about the Luka and the way they were attacking him, and stop doing that. And I think Pierre asked him, does this feel like vindication from last year? And what Rudy said was, no, I'm not looking for vindication against one player. I'm looking for vindication in the form of a championship. And that's what Rudy brings all the time. Like, this isn't the first time he's been shit on up and down throughout a series, and completely and illogically, irrationally, dismissed the things that he does well. And he just does his thing, over and over again. And sometimes it isn't great. Again, the first 4 games was just defense. It was nothing from him on the offensive side of the floor. But when it mattered, when it mattered most, in a game that they needed to close out, you just got a dialed version of Rudy Gobert the whole time. And the 27 on 12 of 15 shooting is going to stand out. But for me, during the game, I'm making just as many defensive notes about him throughout that. A big story of this series is the opposite of what everybody thought it would be. Oh, Luka's going to clear him out in space, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to clear him out in space. He's going to go at him. You saw the clip last year. We didn't actually ever watch a Timberwolves game. We have no idea what Rudy Gobert is actually good at, and that was what they said the entire time. And Luka and LeBron got told to stop doing that shit because it doesn't work against Rudy. They stopped clearing out and saying, hey, isolate, go do this. No, like, that's a bad idea against Rudy Gobert, even for Luka Doncic, who's as good at that as anybody in the league. They stopped because it was not profitable, because he's not only the best, or now maybe with Wemby, second best rim protector, one of the best rim protectors in the entire NBA, but he gets out and switches and guards on the perimeter, guards in any capacity. as well as any, not even just bigs, just anybody. And it's such a missed part of understanding who he is and how he plays. He's actually an extremely versatile defender, yet the narrative has been completely inverted of that. And the only way, and actually it makes sense that this is the way that Rudy like approaches it. Like, what's it going to do to get up there and pound his chest, or say, this is you all were stupid for this and this and this. He's just like, no, like, it's what he said since he's been here. He's like, I'm in this to win a championship. And I do believe in his mind, that is the vindication. I do think he believes he's good enough of a player to lead a team, to that. And let's his play talk. And tonight, even if it didn't as much in the first 4 games, tonight his play absolutely talked. You got anything else on Rudy specifically?
Yeah, just like the human factor of it.
Yeah.
That when he got bounced last year, I mean, again, I'm talking 11 months ago, he was the biggest, punching bag in the league. And that's what happens when you advance in the playoffs. There's less teams, the microscope gets even, tighter and the lights get brighter. But like, everyone just remembers that shot will be played forever, right? And it will still be played forever when Luka gets him.
It was a great shot.
And for Rudy to do what he did and then to, add on post game by just being really humble, kind of reminded me of like how, Giannis lost last night, but the way Giannis kind of handled that whole thing, you and I have kind of cemented this idea that Anthony Edwards is the ceiling of this whole thing, right? Like, he always has been. Like, as far as he can go, that's how far the ceiling goes. But Rudy has always kind of been like the floor in terms of just constantly elevating and bringing this consistency where, whether it be you need him in a game 5 against the Lakers to close him out, or a cold-ass night in January when no one else really wants to play basketball, he was still the guy against the Hornets. They'll give you 14 and 12 and make sure you don't lose those games. And,
Can I say something off of that? Or sorry, were you still going?
Go.
I think that's an important that we make that line. You and I both say this all the time, against the Hornets in January, Rudy is going to, when everybody isn't taking it seriously, is going to take it seriously and win that game. And he puts up big numbers oftentimes against those bad teams. But the Wolves would lose those games if he wasn't doing that. And this was with the Rudy Gobert trade. What Tim Conley has said on the record, what Chris Finch has said on the record, is they traded for Rudy to win now, to put Anthony Edwards in situations where at 21 years old, he's playing against the Denver Nuggets, or he's playing against the Denver Nuggets. That was the first year with Rudy, right? Where they lose in the first round. They wanted to have him be playing in the playoffs. They wanted him last year in the playoffs. Phoenix, Denver, and Dallas, and this year again. They are in the playoffs playing in these games with a seed that gives them a chance to win, because Rudy wins them games during the regular season to put them in the playoffs in this position. If Rudy would have just like got hurt this year, and I'm sure people would disagree with this, but if he was just like out, he missed 40 games or something like that, his team is not in the playoffs. It may honestly, like, maybe not even in the play-in. It wasn't that far away from like the Kings. His consistent presence of doing the little stuff that we only really recognize when we look through the microscope and like analyze it. If Rudy wasn't Rudy Gobert, this team isn't in the playoffs. This team isn't in this position. He's not Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards is the best player on this team. You can maybe even make the case that Julius Randle is playing as the second best player. But that Rudy element is what puts them in this position, puts Anthony Edwards specifically in the position to be in the playoffs and competing at the highest level. And he just deserves some credit outside of this series. And even if tonight would have been another 3 points and 6 rebounds sort of game, if he didn't watch the Wolves during the regular season, that's just the truth. Or that's my truth. That's what Chris Finch would say. That's what Tim Conley would say. That entire team would say. And I just think that that's a factor in this too, that we should, while we're appreciating Rudy, appreciate that element, because they're not here without that during the regular season.
And if you don't like the Hornets analogy or the comp, look at the last 21 games, right? That 17-4 stretch. Who was dominant throughout that whole thing? Rudy Gobert.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like you mentioned, Tim Conley, Chris Finch, Anthony Edwards. I think they get a lot of well-deserved praise for turning an organization around that was historically a dumpster fire. But Rudy Gobert being just, I think I said this to you in mid-March, that his winning percentage in the regular season was like 63%, 64%.
Yep.
He just wins basketball games. And Finchy said it post-game. We got to talk about Finchy a little bit later, but like, you might not like how it looks and you might not look, aesthetically pleasing all the time, or you wish your center looked differently, but every time he puts his shoes on and shows up on the court, which is a lot of times, he's been really durable. He just elevates your chances to win basketball games. And to the Ant thing, they decided to speed up his timeline. And I always reference that Hornets thing because you don't want your kid to learn bad habits. So that pairing has really started to find something, maybe not always with the lobs or stuff, but Ant's ability to create on offense and Rudy's ability to protect on defense. And then tonight, what he gave you on the offensive. I mean, the Lakers, the best rebounder, had 7 rebounds. Luka and LeBron had 7. Rudy had 9 offensive rebounds. Just an incredible performance on a stage that everyone had to really be like, holy shit, that's the Rudy Gobert game. So props to the big Frenchman.
Today's show is brought to you by My Hoops. And Kyle, you know who George Mikan is, right? We talked about this earlier.
Yeah.
He played for the Lakers, played for the Minneapolis Lakers. And as you know, if you played basketball growing up at all, at some point you probably did the Mikan drill. You could shoot it on the right side, grab it, shoot it on the left side. It's not really that productive of a exercise, as are many of the things that we did when we were kids and learning how to play basketball. And that's the idea behind My Hoops, is like keeping the same fun stuff, keeping basketball fun and playing and learning in a fun environment, but kind of stripping away some of this stuff where their staff has thought about, is this actually a productive way to build skills? One thing I really like that they do is like their whole game setup is a constant flow of 4-on-3, 3-on-2. It's kind of like 3-on-2, 2-on-1, what we did, which apparently I guess that drill passes the test. But I just think this fast break development league, for your kids, your son or daughter, who are looking to do something this summer, I really think it would be an interesting way. And if I had a son or daughter who was looking to grow and expand their game and also doing so in a more modern way, I really would recommend My Hoops. You can register for the Fast Break Development League by going to the link in the show notes, or you can go to myhoops.co. Again, they continuous play, limited stoppage games allow the players to improve their skills in a fast and fun environment. Do go to myhoops.co, learn more about it, and sign your daughter or son up for some 5-on-5 youth basketball this summer. You can register as an individual, group, or full team at the registration link below, or by going to myhoops.co. Today's show is also brought to you by Prize Picks. We don't even have the Wolves opponent up next, so we don't have the Wolves on here. But I was looking at some cat numbers, Kyle, for tomorrow. Here. He has. You looked that up too? Yeah. 23.5 points, more or less than that. Also, I was like, okay, I like Cat to do that. He's been more aggressive from 3. Another one I like with Cat, less than 2.5 offensive rebounds. He only has 2 offensive rebounds in the series. I don't know why that number is as high as it is. It also kind of makes sense, right? He's playing a little bit more spread out. So that's just 2 Cat specific ones that I like. It quickly. You got anything that you have from Prize Picks for tomorrow's slate?
Just flat out, that game is going to be awesome. And I think Cade Cunningham, if you saw his reaction to winning game 5, he is such a cool cucumber. So I was just, give me the Cade Cunningham points. I think it might be 27.5, more than that. I fully expect Pistons-Knicks to go the distance. And it's going to be a riveting game 6 down in Detroit. So give me Cade more than 27.5 points.
That's prizepicks.com or the Prize Picks app to put together a daily fantasy lineup over there. If you don't have an account, sign up using the promo code Dane, and they will credit your account with $50 when you place your first $5 lineup. All right, Kyle, let's talk about the shooting stuff.
Do we have to?
I want to start by saying, from my limited looking at Twitter and stuff, and then also just in the media room, I feel like that got way, 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 way obsessed over. So I guess I'm zagging here. But
Okay.
there were some people like comparing it to the Rockets game. And I don't think that's a fair comparison. You know, when the Rockets missed 27 straight or whatever
I never
it was.
thought about that. Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't that. It wasn't that. They missed 43s tonight. And I was thinking about 7 for 47 from deep. They missed them. But of those 40 misses, how many of them do you think were like clearly open threes? 30?
Oh, dude. Yeah.
More?
75%.
Yes. Like it was, I mean, they clearly weren't hitting them. They weren't in their, like, I didn't really understand. Yeah, you could have got into the middle a little bit more, like maybe tried to get to the line some, but they did a good job of getting to the line overall. I think it was the Lakers were so condensed into the lane and simultaneously obsessed with Ant on the perimeter that it was just a couple passes away from a wide open three the entire game. It looked and felt almost exactly like game one did to me when they made 21 of their 42 threes. I think it's often like reductive when we're like, oh, it's just like you made them or missed them. And, you know, some people are doing that with game two when the Wolves missed them. I don't think that game was the same either. I don't think they were generating good, clean threes in game two. I don't think that was a game where they just missed them when the one game the Lakers won. This game was generating good looks for good 3-point shooters for the most part. And they weren't hitting them. They weren't hitting them. But I don't know. I didn't like have a problem with generating them and taking them. It wasn't like they were exclusively doing that. They had Rudy, as we talked about. Julius was getting to the basket. I mean, so much of it is Ant, who just, you know, he shot 0 of 11 from three himself. That would have been the only guy I would have been like, all right, maybe we could have turned down a couple of those, because his weren't just the wide open catch and shoot ones, right? He was searching to try and knock one down because he had that big 0 sitting there. I don't know, but for the most part, I didn't have any problem with what the offense looked like.
Okay, so just to clarify, you're zagging because the process to you felt right.
Yes.
And I fully agree. But I'm going to zig just because this is like the coolest stat in the world. Before tonight, NBA teams were 0-9 in NBA history when attempting 40 or more threes and making under 15% of them. They also lost by an average of 20 points per game. So You're right. Like, I mean, when I think of the threes they got tonight, I think of Dante DiVincenzo in an empty gym.
Right.
In his spots, just getting fantastic looks. If anyone had rushed them a little bit, I thought maybe Nikhil had a couple, but Nikhil's shown a propensity to hit these tight angle threes. So I didn't have a problem with them, but I also don't want to completely say that I didn't overreact in the moment, because again, they shot 7 of 47 from three. Yeah. And I think at any point, pick a 3-minute sample size in that 48 minutes. Had they have hit 3 more of them, the game was over.
Right.
So
particularly in like the first quarter or something like that, like when they already were up 12 or 14 or whatever it was.
Remember that possession when they had 4 offensive rebounds and they got 4 more threes and they missed them all? Like,
right.
So NBA history will say that the Wolves literally had a historically awful shooting night and they still won the game. And that kind of goes back to the Rudy thing. But yeah, I mean, we'll watch it again tomorrow and stuff, but I don't think I can name 2 or 3 threes that were bad shots. But to circle it all the way back, who hits the biggest one of the game and of the series?
Mike.
Crazy, right? Led by Ant getting in the lane, not settling for his 12th missed 3 and just getting to the rim and then kicking it to Mike. And Mike Conley, who I was like, are they going to bench him in game 3 or game 4? You know, just so many great takes from me. And he hits the biggest shot, and that was the absolute, I mean, it really was. I think it put him up 6, but that was the absolute backbreaker. Mm-hmm. And it's just another kind of, you know, wrinkle in this 5-game gentleman's sweep. It's like, man, they played well tonight, I thought, especially in that first quarter. They came out with the juice that you would want from a team looking to put their opponent away, and they just couldn't find that, You know, they were a top 5 shooting team from 3 all season, and they couldn't find that element, and it didn't really matter. But yeah, what a crazy, crazy night to get those types
It
of
was
looks.
crazy. I'm not trying to diminish the
Yeah.
craziness of it, because that stat's real. I heard, I'm not gonna say, I heard some people talk about it and there was just like, that was so stupid. They kept taking him. It was like the Rockets 2.0. And I was like, that is not what was going through my head when it happened. But I want to focus on the Ant and his game in this, some even more defensive attention than he received in games 1 through 4. And it led him to, start trying to like kind of force, I think, a couple of threes whenever a semi opportunity was there, and he didn't have the shot. He didn't have the shot going at all. I went to shoot around this morning.
Yeah.
And how it goes. We were there and we watched like the last 20 minutes of practice. It's largely like guys are just doing like shooting drills, right?
Yeah.
And to be fair, guys normally, they're NBA players. They normally make a bunch of their shots. But I'm telling you, dude, Ant was like on the basket right in front of where I was sitting. And that dude, when I walked in and I sat down, must have made 15 in a row. And then like Rudy's like shooting free throws and Ant's talking, and and Rudy starts like guarding him when like C. Hines is feeding Ant to take these, and he's just taking and making all of these over Rudy, and it's like kind of becomes a scam. So he's made like 15 in a row, and then Rudy starts guarding him. He's shooting them over Rudy, and it's just in, and then how Ant, he's like just super locked in, and I was sitting there and I was like, dude, this guy's gonna go off tonight. Like he's and it always seems to, of course, goes literally the complete opposite direction. But as he just clanked like one after another tonight, I just kept thinking about this morning, and I've seen Ant shoot a million times, right? In that type of setting, and he always makes most of them. He's a great shooter, but it was literally one of the probably the most impressive 15 minutes of quote unquote open gym shooting I have personally ever seen from Ant. And that it was just funny not funny, whatever it was, just crazy that he was so cold in this game. What did you just make of his game overall, maybe even outside of the 3-point shooting?
I didn't know this until I looked at the box score after the game. But do you know how many turnovers he had?
I do not know.
Because I thought the Lakers, to their credit, did make some adjustments and just threw more stuff at him. And you can see, we watch, we're on game number 280 of watching Anthony Edwards in his career, but you could tell it's just like he could not figure out, why are they not going in? Like, these are great looks. I mean, Dante kind of had the same look on his face. So he's 0 for 11, but he still finishes with 15 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists. But, dude, he had 0 turnovers. And I think it's for the first time, again, like Julius, for the first time in his playoff career. So to not,
what do you have, like six turnovers for the whole series, 7, something like that?
I think it was 6. Yeah. So for him, he had 6 coming into this. So for him to, I mean, that's just like, I know we're glazing him now, but like the growth of him to be like, I have this new weapon and it is my go-to finishing wrestling move, and I just can't figure it out. Like, I just can't get the car started. So I have to do all this other stuff. And, I remember the Sun series where I was like, okay, they're having the gap coverage, and then you see this like weird zone, and the Lakers went to zone tonight, and they're just, every team now is throwing all these different languages at Ant. And for him to, in the biggest spot, while he doesn't have, fourth gear, still figure it out and still make all the right plays. I mean, yeah, Mike Conley hits the biggest shot of the game, but it's because Ant draws 3 and Mike is wide open, because a lot of these guys, to your point earlier about these are all great looks, how many of them are because of Anthony Edwards? Just the attention he draws, right? And it does have a little Steph to it in terms of the gravity of just, we have to throw 2 guys really close to him, and it opens it up. But I thought, outside of the 0 from 11 shooting performance, which I would imagine you just rarely see again, I just thought it's incredible that at 23, he's figuring this out. Like, how many pods have you done, Dane? Did you ever think it was going to be like this? We've joked about having a professor next to him all his years, right? And like, now he's a 5th-year senior, and he's teaching the class now, and it's crazy to watch night in and night out.
Yeah, man. I think I mean, he didn't have a good game overall. But he didn't completely let the lack of shooting make him
That's the point. Yeah.
toothless. And I remember we were in Portland. You were there too, and we were at the game when they lost to the Blazers. And I think that was like a 0 for 9 shooting game for Ant from deep. I don't know. I'm not gonna look that up right now, but I remember him having a really bad game. Remember that was they lost both of those games to the Blazers, and it's like because Ant wasn't able to do anything else, right? Like this team should be able to survive and win games sometimes, when Ant is having a really poor shooting night. That didn't happen during the regular season because Ant during the regular season wasn't doing all the other things. And you got into the playmaking, and there was certainly some of that. What I liked, where I liked Ant's contribution was defensively tonight. As you know, we talked about it numerous times during the series. What I was concerned about for the Wolves was Jaden McDaniels' foul trouble, costing them a game in the series, just because when Jaden sat and anybody else was out there guarding Luka, it was a problem in games 1 through 4. Ant, Nikhil, they both filled in for Jaden, and Luka was still playing really well, but it wasn't like Jaden was out of the game and now Luka had whatever he wanted. And I thought, to Ant's credit in particular, Jaden falls out. I think there's 7 minutes left in the game, and that becomes Ant's assignment in closing time, right? Like he's got to guard Luka, and he's got to also kind of lead the offense there. And I was just impressed by his understanding that, like, hey, I don't have this going, but I got to do other things, specifically defensively. That stood out to me more than the offense. But that we'll talk about the foul trouble and the depth of this team later. But that him stepping up defensively against Luka Doncic because they didn't have anybody else to guard him, that was huge.
And that's the right answer. I should have led with that. The defense, especially when Jaden goes out, and then all of a sudden Julius is in foul trouble. And we've pretty much talked about the fact that I don't think
we can get into the foul trouble.
Nikhil is a good matchup, but I do just want to say, because it does kind of support my point, that Blazers game, I don't know how you remember that, but he finished 0 for 9 from 3. But in that game, he had 4 rebounds, 4 assists, and 4 turnovers. And tonight, while he's 0 for 11 from 3, he finishes with 11 rebounds, 8 assists, 3 steals, and 0 turnovers. And that just, he found other ways to make plays on offense, and then defensively, without him, they would have had no other options. And he was just, man, he's a two-way star. Like, he was able to do it on both ends, and they needed it really bad, especially in that second quarter where they have no Julius for 8 or 9 minutes and no Jaden for the whole second quarter.
Yeah, okay, I pulled it up. So the Portland game, he goes 0 for 9 from 3. They lose that. He goes 0 for 5 from 3 in a game against Memphis in January. They lose that game. He goes 1 for 11 in a game against Indiana in March from 3, and they lose that game. 1 for 7 in a game against Atlanta in December. They lose that game. And then another game against the Pacers, he went 1 for 11 from 3, and they lost that game. Tonight he went 0 for 11 and they won and closed out. It was a weird game. I mean, that was bizarre, but I don't remember everything from those 5 games, but I bet you we were doing podcasts the next day after that and being like, Ant was not there mentally. He let the shot affect him. That wasn't, he didn't let the shot affect the team as a whole tonight. I think it was probably in his head some, and there was frustration, but more broadly, no, he was he helped this team get there. Let me we'll grab another break here, and then we can then we'll talk a little bit about the depth of this team. Today's episode is brought to you by First Resource Bank, and First Resource Bank has locations throughout Minnesota. I actually went in there and met with them earlier this week. They have a new branch in Minneapolis, kind of right by US Bank Stadium. That Trader Joe's right over there. If you are a small business owner, just looking like small business owner like myself, and looking for a place to help your business grow, that's obviously I would recommend First Resource Bank for that. But also just in general, it is a community bank, and community banks like FRB, they can do more to help those. You can have more of that personal relationship with your bank. It has more of that hometown feel at all of their branches. They're also FDIC insured and doing a lot of stuff for the community as well, putting a lot of money into philanthropic endeavors all across the state. And their owner, Tim Siegley, is a big Timberwolves fan as well. So I want to let you know about First Resource Bank, and you can, if you live in the cities, check out that branch. Right by U.S. Bank Stadium. That's First Resource Bank. Today's show is also brought to you by Your Home Improvement Company. You've all heard me talking about Your Home Improvement Company for a long time, but I'm just thinking it's summertime, and maybe you do have that home improvement project that's on your radar, and you're like, all right, we're getting this done. We're getting this done in May. Call up Your Home Improvement Company. You can do that at 866-777-YHIC, or you'll learn more at yourhomeimprovement.co.com. But if you have that home improvement project, you're going to get it taken care of by certified professionals at Your Home Improvement Company. Buy 2 windows, get 2 free is a deal they got going on, and 30% off deal on bathroom remodels this month as well. Simple tub to shower conversion or a full on bathroom remodel. All their offers, they have great financing deals. They require 0 money down, 0 interest, and 0 payments until 2026. Again, that's 866-777-YHIC, or you can go to yourhomeimprovement.co.com. Your Home Improvement Company, where it's your home made better. All right. Do you want to talk about the foul trouble? Because I thought that was, if we're talking about just like game script of this game, I thought that was huge as well. That it was Jaden was in foul trouble right away. Julius Randle was in foul trouble. Rudy had 4 early in the third quarter, and it was as much as any game all season that the quote unquote 8 starters thing seemed to prove to be true. They just still lived with those 8. They survived Julius and Jaden on the bench early in the second quarter. They just played with the other 6 the rest of the second quarter, and made it work. I mean, we've been calling this the deepest team, the best bench in the NBA for a few months now. They made that clear with their performance during the regular season, but tonight I thought it really showed out. And I mean, I don't know how many teams in the playoffs are winning a game, let alone a closeout game, when 3 of their most impactful players are in pretty chronic foul trouble the whole time. You only do that with a team that is extremely deep and has starting caliber players on their bench, like the Wolves do. I thought it was, I mean, I thought when Jaden McDaniels got in foul trouble, this team was going to be screwed in any game in this series, and they weren't, because I yet again underrated the depth of this team.
Yeah, but you're the smartest basketball mind I know. And when Jaden left with 10-18 in the second quarter, and the Lakers had finally kind of found, like, hey, we're here. We're not, the Cancun flight doesn't leave till the morning. I thought they were cooked, because it was 32-28 with 10-18 in the second, and Jaden goes out. And then I don't know how soon after that, but then Julius just got a couple wild fouls, and it was, those were, to me, the 2 guys, right? Like, yeah, if Nas gets on a switch, he can maybe hold his own, and Dante can get spicy, and Nikhil obviously moves his feet well, but those 2 guys gave you the best chance, obviously outside of what we said in segment 2 of, like, well, I guess we can throw Ant on him, but you never want to, like, burn that fuel that early in the game. And credit to them, because as I started to watch that second, I mean, they did build like a 10-point lead by the time it got to halftime, which was important, because I think the Lakers were 0-16 this season when down by 10 or more points at half. But they just kind of grinded, and became like a all 5 guys, all hands on deck type thing. But to your point, like the depth again, Like I think about the depth in terms of playmaking and chaos and the new puppy you throw out with the old dogs and stuff and shooting, but they just did enough to frustrate Luka. And I mean, Dante had that one foul on Luka, which online, by the way, like everyone went crazy. Like people thought he was getting ejected. Not in our neck of the woods, but they just did enough to kind of muck
I
it
thought I
up.
was getting
And then
ejected for that common foul.
I'm dead serious. Like a lot of people were like, he's probably gone. But yeah, it was when Jaden went out, you kind of thought like, oh, okay, we've made it this far, but here's that game where he's out. He
Yeah,
was
that's what I
pretty
was
much
thinking.
a nothing burger on both sides because of the foul trouble. But for them to just kind of piecemeal it together, and a lot of, again, goes credit to Ant, that was like the pivotal moment for me, is because it really could have, I mean, the fact that they lost those guys and were still able to build a lead, like that could have really swung it in the Lakers' momentum and get the crowd into it and stuff. And they just refused to let that go because they have, as we've heard all season, 8 starters.
Well, yeah, and we talked about this after game 4. The Wolves won the 50-50 ball battle in this. They won the deflections battle. They won the second effort battle. And in those times when Julius and Jaden were out of the game, it was 2 minutes into the second quarter, and they both had 3 and they were out. So they played the last 10 minutes of the second without them. In that time, they were getting the offensive rebounds. Like Rudy dialed it up another level there. All right, we need some more here. Dante's blowing up plays. Nikhil's flailing all over the place. That dude looks like there's no way he could play like 40 minutes in a game. Like that's just no way. That dude runs and moves and goes like constantly. And I just think that was an underrated, under talked about like part of this the whole time. I don't even know if some sort of tracking website, whatever, is able to do this, but you know what I'm talking about? Just the amount of times when the ball was loose that the Wolves came up with it, or the amount of times that the Wolves made the ball go loose and then went and got it. It felt like, I said to Jace at one point, sitting next to him at the game, it's like, man, it just feels like the ball is falling into the Wolves' hands like every time on this rebound or that one. And obviously there's like some element of luck of where the ball caroms off or whatever, but I don't know, man. Over 5 games, like you put yourself in a position to profit by playing with that second effort mentality the whole time. And I just thought that went a really long way, especially once they got shorthanded and are missing their second engine of their offense and Julius, and missing their, I think, most important defender in this series, Jaden Garden, Luka.
And you know how it stood out? That thing you just said about like kind of always being in the right place at the right time. Like, yeah, in one game it's luck, but over a 5-game series, it has to be maybe more than that. And Jace was kind of tweeting this out earlier. Watching the Lakers not do that.
Yeah. Right.
Really made it like, you know what I mean? Like tasting crackers all day and then eating something with actual flavor. You're like, oh my God. Like watching the Lakers just stand around and not go for 50-50 balls, or not position themselves to get little swipe downs or to create second, third, fourth possessions. It was fascinating. And again, like the Nikhil stuff, if you look back over these 5 games, I mean, I think I would say this too. It's like, oh, Nikhil didn't really have a great series. But do you remember when, going back to 75% of their threes were great looks? Remember when he got one, I think, in the corner in front of the Lakers bench and he airballed it? And it was like, oh my God. And then like the next possession down, he demanded the damn ball, took the same shot and just crushed it. And it's like, that kind of gives you an insight into this book lover's mind. Like he is fearless the way he navigates screens, take these threes. And again, without Jaden to put pressure on the rim or obviously throw a body at Luka 94 feet, they needed Nikhil in that spot. And box score wise, he's not going to blow your socks off with, I mean, he did have 10 points, 3 assists. He was 2 for 9 from 3. Everyone was. But yeah, it was good. It was probably Nikhil's best game of the playoffs, all things considered, in these 5 games. So yeah, it just, again.
Yeah, and they needed to get down to the 8th guy, right? Like I think he played 12 minutes in game 4. But you needed to be able to, you needed to be able to go that deep. And how many teams have a guy that is their 8th man that they can, confidently be like, yep, we're just going to double your minutes. You know what I mean? Like that is that is a special thing that this team has in Nikhil as their eighth man. I wanted to make sure to talk about Julius Randle here. Every episode you and Britt and I did, I found myself bringing about this time of the podcast being like, hey guys, let's remember to like Julius was pretty yeah, right. I was like Julius was pretty good. It was just, and it happened again tonight. It was the story of his whole series in these times when the Wolves offense was stalling out, or tonight when they just couldn't hit a three. There was just amidst the times where they're not making the threes and the Lakers are going on a little run, it would be like, all right, there's just boom, Julius, straight line drive, pass Luka, boom, Julius through two, boom, Julius offensive rebound, finish and one. Like there was so much of the good Julius Randle, and there was so much of the good Rudy Gobert. And Finch made it a point in his post-game press conference to talk about how both of those guys are people and players who just do receive an unfair level of criticism, and I say that as someone who has criticized both of them, at times over the course of the season. They do have imperfect games, right? They have had bad stretches over the course of the season, but it's rare, man, with like two guys where we just remember the things they do wrong so much more than we appreciate the things that they do right. And doing this for my job, I have to watch every game. I'm watching every game, and it is just, once you like immerse yourself in looking for ways to understand their game better and finding the value, you start like filling up your cup with Rudy, right? We've talked about this a bunch. It's like the offensive rebounds, it's the screen assists, it's the awareness, it's the help, it's all that. And Julius is like on the offensive side of the floor, the same thing, like effectively opportunistic, does have the ability to go one-on-one, like whenever he wants to be able to go do that. And he's not going to do it at like a 70% clip. But when your offense is bogging down, it's not a bad thing to do. Be able to give it to a guy who's going to be able to go into the mid-range or his little 12-foot area and score half the time, be 50% from there. Was a really, really important singles hitter, I felt, throughout
that's a good way to put it.
this whole series, and there was never, I had that one game we had 27 or something like that. It was a big Julius game, but I really thought it was just a very consistent version of Julius Randle, and a version of Julius Randle that he came to understand and know over the course of the season of who he needs to be for this team. I feel like Julius Randle played this whole series as the version of Julius Randle that this group and those other 7 guys who play need. And we're gonna remember Ant from this series and what he did in games 1 through 4, and we're gonna remember the Rudy Gobert game. But this series to me was just as much about Julius Randle in the aggregate and giving you 5 good games.
Poetically said, if this was the Rudy Gobert game and he needed that to change his narrative, this was the Julius Randle series, and he needed that to change, playoff Julius. I said this before, but like when you really broke down the Karl-Anthony Towns for Julius Randle and Dante DiVincenzo trade before the season started, and you talked to people from the Knicks, they had a lot of good things to say about Julius, but they also said, hit us up in April when it's playoff time. And he was phenomenal. LeBron is 40, so I'm going to judge him on a curve a little bit, but I've never seen someone go at LeBron with that level of physicality that Julius did. And the rebounding, the playmaking, he had those 7 turnovers in game 1 and then got progressively better. But the thing that stood out to me, and I don't know why I think this is the worst comp ever, but like he just kind of reminds me of when I would watch Nick Chubb play football. And it's like, Nick Chubb, like it's 3rd and 4, we need 5 yards. And it's like, all right, get on my back. I squat 10-30. Like, I'm going to get 5 yards. There were so many moments in this series alone where the offense got really stagnant, or they're shooting 13% from 3 and they just need a bucket. And it seemed to me you had straight line drives and a couple of these other things. They would just throw it to him on a mismatch on the block, and he would just go bang, 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 get into the middle of the paint and then hit that little kind of fadeaway floater. And every time, I
Which
would be
was
honest, I was
money
like,
this series.
but every time I was like, and it's like the
Yeah.
no, yes.
Mhm.
And it was a lot of just straight yeses in these 5 games. And this is, the 8th year I've been doing this with you. I've just flat out never been more wrong about a player than Julius Randle. I mean, he is just, and I think that not me, but us, or the narrative in general, you got to listen to Chris Finch's post game presser, because you were there and I wasn't, but it seemed like it wasn't a question about Julius.
It
And
was not.
Finch turned the car to be like, hey, by the way,
Yeah.
Julius has been awesome. And again, maybe we can get a little Finch stuff here, but no one believed in Julius Randle throughout these last 8 months more than Chris Finch, who knew him from New Orleans. And while we were all like, we joked about this, and a lot of this is my fault for making you do it, but like, we did the pod where it's like, do you just attach the assets to get rid of them? Like, are you just better by not having them so that you have more flexibility this summer? And I'm calling it a gap year. And that man is just a flat out dog. He is Nick Chubb. And when they needed him, especially tonight, he gave you a couple buckets. He would get those huge rebounds. And I don't know, man, I predicted this series pretty well, but I never thought like, oh, hey, he's also going to be a good option on Luka. Incredible. Just flat out incredible performance from him. He's kind of goated now in Timberwolves lore. And they're going to, not to look ahead, but I think he's going to play a huge role in this next series, because it's going to only become, whether it's Houston or Golden State, it's only going to become more physical. And that man, not, no discredit to Anthony Edwards, but that man sets the tone in terms of physicality for this team. And I think they all feed off it. And he's going to have to level up again. But man, I've never seen LeBron on the ground more times than just banging bodies with Julius. And it was incredible.
It is going to be, physicality is going to be a really big part of whether it's Houston or Golden State in this next series. And obviously we'll do a more genuine series preview for that when the time comes. But, Houston, if it's Houston, right, they're going to be big, and they're going to throw that Adams and Şengün front court out there, and they're going to be physical. That's what they do. Or it's going to be Golden State, who's going to be really small, and it's going to be the same thing, that you're going to need Julius to impose his physicality against a smaller Golden State front court there, and those are feel like pretty bankable things from Julius Randle now. Like, I don't feel like that's some huge dice roll that you're going to be able to get that from him. And sorry if you were the person I had this conversation with. Somebody over last weekend, we were in Minneapolis for games 3 and 4. But I asked them, who do you think the closest comp to Julius Randle in the NBA is right now? Who do you think of? And I'm like, hey, pick the player that Julius Randle plays most like. And I know you're thinking of left-handed people right now. Everybody who's doing the podcast, I know you're thinking of left-handed people. It doesn't have to be left-handed.
Oh,
because I feel like the answer is actually obvious. But you won't think of it. I think it like. Do you have anyone?
No, I don't have it. And you broke my brain with the whole left.
It's LeBron, dude. It's LeBron.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, from stylistically, archetype-wise, it's LeBron or Paolo Banchero, I think. Right? Who else is even? I mean, one, you just need to be so big, and that's the majority of this. But that force, in the interior, that force as a big body player who uses their strength to create space in the mid range and in depth in the lane. I'm not saying he's as good necessarily as LeBron James or Paolo Banchero. Those are two really, really great players. But Julius Randle has been second team All-NBA. And he was second team All-NBA the one season he shot 40% from 3. And what I've learned over the course of this season covering Julius is, one, he's just a better player than I thought, better offensive player than I thought. But man, when there's been these stretches during the season where he's combining his typical Julius Randle forceful game in the paint with a 40% 3 ball, that is an All-NBA player. It is maybe not the second team, but that is what Julius Randle is doing. And if he's shooting, 5-6 threes per game and making 2 or 3 of them, that is a fully dynamic player at the caliber of Paolo Banchero. And at times at the caliber of LeBron James. It's really not that big of a gap between him and those guys, yet he is treated as if it is some massive chasm. Stylistically, he plays like it, and the effectiveness and efficiency he's playing with is at those players, those all-star caliber players, level.
Hey, Julius, be LeBron is much more fun than when we were like, hey, Julius, can you be Kyle Anderson? Right? Also, you got me all amped up. Like 100 Juliuses could definitely take that gorilla, right? Because that man is just, no, you got me thinking about it. But it was just, I mean, again, the LeBron stuff, I don't want to like totally shit on him because his age, and he, again, even tonight when like Luka gave you nothing, LeBron had those moments. I'm sure it felt like it in the building of like he might be doing it again. But Julius just, we talk about how like Jaden was really only the perfect guy to put on Luka. I mean, I thought in my mind like Julius was like the only perfect guy to put on LeBron, and Ant can kind of guard them both. But I didn't see the Julius defense coming the whole season. I remember early on there was the Gobert moment in Toronto, and there's the body language, and he's still coming back from an injury, and that, I think in hindsight, is maybe the thing we all missed more than anything, is that we just found out about this guy 48 hours ago, and he's here now, and he replaces Cat, and he hasn't played basketball in a while, and he's been pretty open that getting injured during this season was like low-key the best thing that happened to him, because he just got to kind of watch how this all played out, and it allowed him to fit in better. And yeah, man, I don't know. Again, my sincere apologies, because when we were all doing the thing of would they just be better by picking him up with the crane machine and taking him out and putting Nas in his spot, and it's no discredit to Nas, but if you think this team is going to the second round without Julius Randle on the roster, you're hot. Like, that just doesn't happen. And he was big tonight when they needed him. And again, the Rudy Gobert game, but don't forget how good Julius was this series and even tonight in Game 5.
Yeah, Julius Randle series. What did you want to get to with Finch?
I just think he's awesome. I mean, being around the team for a week and having someone finally just kind of rip the Band-Aid off and being like, hey, man, coaching in 2025 in the NBA is like 90% managing egos and 10% X's and O's. And that was someone who works for the team. Credit to him, because this is the first time. I mean, they make the Western Conference Finals last year for the first time in 20 years. But if you go back and look at all those other years, man, with KG, like, it was always just first-round exits. And I just have a ton of respect for Finch because I'm a vibes guy, and I think Britt said it better than I could, but he just gets the most important people to feel very comfortable, and he kind of trusts that will, in the macro, outweigh kind of the micro stuff, like micro, worst challenge I've ever seen Finch call tonight, right? But it didn't really matter because in the macro, he was pulling all the right strings. And, I was thinking about before the game when you were at shoot around and you're asking Rudy about, they've closed with this lineup. Right. And tonight, Finch is just like, you know what? Bleep it. I'm going to close with this lineup. And all the culture-y stuff that's hard to grasp or feel unless you're really there around the team, at some point that has to be credited to someone. The idea that all these guys don't, Dante said it after Game 4, we don't care about stats. And Rudy's like, we don't care who closes. You got to have a good relationship with the guy making those decisions. And for the first time in franchise history, this team is now in back-to-back seasons advancing past the first round. And again, I'm just a guy, but Jim Pete, Britt Robson have aligned that this is the best coach in Timberwolves franchise history in 36 years. And I think those guys love him and they play for him. And I thought, and probably deservedly so, but I thought he coached circles around JJ Redick this whole series. And I was at a lot of those pressers pre and post. And Finch just always remained really cool. And I think his players fed off that while JJ was a little more up and down. So
all season, man. I think that was true. Sure. I think that was true all season. he had a longer view of this roster than anyone did.
Yep.
The whole time. Do you remember when he had that line back in maybe it was like November or December, where he was like, it's just going to take a while for the cake to bake. And he was talking about this. This is the cake, and it's Randle fitting in and his role making sense. It's Rudy being able to fit into this group, getting Ant to kind of grow himself, but yet grow within the context of the team. Yeah, us too were hard on Finch at times over the season, because what we miss, I think, doing the work that we do, or just as a fan watching the game, we aren't taking a long view. Like, I'm doing episodes about the last game or about the last, what I'm saying? Like, and within that, if you don't have a long view, there were things to be like, oh my gosh, Finch, all right, 8 guys again, or whatever, like whatever the thing, true was your problem that you had with Finch. I know I had plenty, but it was I just do have a respect for a vision he clearly set out back in training camp for what this could look like, and then being patient enough to believe in the plan. I mean, how many times in life do we like, hey, my plan for this year is this, and then it becomes February and you're like, that's not my plan anymore because those first 6 weeks were terrible. Like,
well, and on that, not to interrupt you, but the cake bake thing, 48 hours before we all showed up for media day, he thought he was going to make a souffle, right? Like, he thought he did the 4-part Brit thing, and he did like, we're running it back with Carl, and we're going to do Carl and Rudy, and like
Rob's going to play.
Yeah. Whoa.
Remember that?
Remember all of those pods? Oh my God. But like, he really thought we're going this way with this same roster, and for it to be flipped, and then for him to immediately kind of be like, okay, now I have this new long-term vision and I'm going to stick to it. I know it sounds like I'm his son, but I just think that man fucking gets it. And if you don't agree, how do you prove it wrong? Like, look at what this team does. They were head and shoulders better than Luka, LeBron, and the Lakers. It was all 5 games were games that the Wolves should have won and could have won and probably whatever. And they just, I don't know, man, a lot of that stuff does go back to the coach who, again, I think in a specific moment might not have the ATO that you wanted or might not play the young kid that you wanted, but he has that roster figured out. And when he was saying 8 starters, I know in November you and I were rolling our eyes, and it's like all those little things, cake and bake, whatever, it all came to fruition. And that whole group from top to bottom has to feel really confident spending the night in LA. Again, now you're looking at, just to say this now, like Warriors Rockets goes to game 6. We'll see how that plays out. But now this team is back to, they have a couple extra days of rest, a couple extra days to scout. And that was all I wanted out of the regular season was, can you get in the top 6? Well, now you're in what's going to be, the final 4 of the West. And can you just scout enough, whoever that opponent may be? And I bet you Chris Finch loves it, because I bet you Chris Finch loves a good rock fight. And that's one way or another, whether it be in Houston, Texas, or Golden State, that's what they have coming up for them in the next round.
Yeah, it's, I mean, he made it a point to talk about, Rudy getting a lot of shit over the course of the season. I mean, he literally said shit in his press conference. He was like, it's been a team that's taken a lot of shit, when he was talking about Julius and Rudy, but he did too, and he's a big boy, and he can take that a lot of that comes with the territory.
Yep.
Right. But like, I don't know, that X guy who comments on every one of my tweets or every one of these YouTube channels, it's like, gotta fucking fire Finch and you gotta trade Rudy and Julius sucks, play Nas. It's like, I don't know, man. I don't think if you were the coach that your team would still be going right now. Like, it is possible that this guy knows more than us, and it's actually likely that he knows a lot more than us. He also has a personal relationship with every one of these bizarre type of players that he's trying to piece together all the time. Like Rudy would be a tough player to coach. Julius Randle would be a tough player to coach. Anthony Edwards would be a tough player to coach. Those are 3 good players, but like they have their own little peccadillos, of their things that make them tricky, right? Like,
yeah.
And I think Finch managed that. And at the beginning of the season, it was rough, and he copped to. My favorite is whenever with us in a post game or something like that, I would ask him a question. He would say, "Oh, that's on me," or "I wanted to get this guy in there. I didn't do this or that there." And people would always come at him like, "See, he made another mistake. Like, look at him. He's admitting it. Like, fire him." No, man. He's just actually being the whole time. He's been real. I've been at every one of the press conferences. He's been real about what this is and what it isn't, what he's done right, which he doesn't ever talk about that, but he's not, he has been willing to admit the areas that, he fumbled. I mean, he would say that, or has said that, he said it at pregame today, that, I pushed Julius too much to be a scorer earlier on in the season because he was trying to figure this out, and the point is, here they are now, and it might not have been A+ coaching or whatever at the beginning of the year. I just don't know if it was like a test that was possible to get an A on or even a B+ on at the beginning, given that they trade for these guys 2 days before training camp, and one of them is still hurt with a shoulder injury, hasn't played basketball in 6 months. Like, this was just going to be a very difficult coaching job. And I think sometimes we don't always take in that like pretext of what it is, from the, and again, I say this like hand raised of wanting to learn and wanting to like, because I'm perpetuating some of those narratives sometimes. And it's when something doesn't make sense, it's probably because we don't know all the variables well enough.
Mm-hmm.
And Finch, whatever you want to say about him, understands the variables of this team, obviously better than you do, obviously better than I do, and certainly better than random fan X who's, just watching at home, and I don't know. It's he deserves a lot of credit. He deserves a lot of credit for this team right now.
Peccadillos sounds like a place that would have bomb jalapeno poppers. Like, this sounds like a restaurant that you would go to after a game. Peccadillos, great word. No, that's it. I just was, that was beautifully said. Feels good to be back. We got a studio now. Shout out to you. You've come so far. We're traveling, we're doing stuff, but this felt like last year a little bit, right? Just hotel rooms, late nights, post pods. I deleted all my notes. Only have one left, but I'll share it later because it's personal. So, Wolves in 5. I thought it was going to be 6. That's on me. Hand up. And now the team will.
Hey man, let me do that even more. I thought the Lakers were gonna. You at least thought the Wolves were gonna win the series. I thought the Lakers were gonna win this series and thought it might be quick. Honestly, that was my honest opinion of what this was going in, and it was another reminder, as was last postseason, that this team does have a different gear in the playoffs, and it's a gear that really trims a lot of its fat. Like all the meat they left on the bone during the regular season, they have a way of eating that up in the playoffs, and that's something I want to, whenever it is I'm assessing this Wolves Warriors or Wolves Rockets round 2 matchup, they've earned the right to be viewed through the lens of a team that performs at this level in the playoffs, and not as the team, or as I often do, hyper fixate on the things that they didn't do well during the regular season. Those things are real. Those things weren't good, and they happened. But at least for this series, we saw very little carryover of the issues that they had during the regular season to the postseason. And the same thing was true last season. And Anthony Edwards is the best player on this team. Chris Finch, as the coach of this team, has proven to have a way about them that doesn't let those things sustain. We should expect that this is a damn good playoff team that has a real shot of moving through whoever it is that they play in the second round. This isn't going to be long odds. They might be a favorite next round, and they've earned that, and they've earned that even amidst all of their slow start and follies across the course of the season. So yeah, credit where it's due, man. Credit where it's due. This team really stepped up. You got nothing else? You just got your private note and your note that you'll share with me afterwards.
If they make the finals, I'm gonna share who might have had the first ever birthday party at Camp Snoopy. It's a friend of mine. No, Wolves in 5. They did it. I thought that Lakers team was legitimately. I get so much wrong, but I did think that team was closer to the Suns than the Mavs. Having no lob threat, no perimeter defenders, really. Like it became kind of a leaning on your opponent until they break, and the Wolves did it quickly. But as we remember from last year's run, they swept the Suns in 4, and they kind of gentlemen swept the Lakers in 5. But then that next series all of a sudden becomes its whole new thing with a bunch of new storylines and guys that can't play and can play. And I think now you wake up as a Timberwolves fan Thursday morning and you enjoy this one and you enjoy the weekend, and everything's kind of slated to start next Monday or Tuesday, and a new war is upon you. And I think you got to enjoy this one because it is the small team versus the big team, and the Minneapolis Lakers and the Minnesota Timberwolves. But I'm telling you, man, I'm going to enjoy this one for a day or two and get right. But this next round is going to be, one way or another, is going to be one of the most insanely fun potential storyline series that we've had. So Wolves in 5, big one. Appreciate you and everything you do traveling around. I know I speak for all the fans. And I'm excited to see what's up next.
See you in Minneapolis on Monday.
Yes, sir. Book the room.
Yes, love it. We'll do another pod at some point over the course of this weekend. Probably previewing the next round whenever that comes, and we have I guess that's probably the best way to put it. Once we know whether it's Warriors or Rockets, that's then when I'm assuming it'll be Britt. Will hop on with me and we'll do a preview of that. I know I was getting a bunch of messages today and be like, hey, it's been 2 days since there was a pod, and I would, there's no shortage of amount of podcasts we could do right now, right? We could talk about this team every single day. They're in the playoffs, but logistically, with me traveling for these, there's going to be a little bit bigger of gaps, and I'm not always on the same flights as everyone else is. So, just know we're trying to make as many of these happen as possible, and we're also trying to have lives and not just delete those for however long this playoff run goes. So, I appreciate you always being here to do these, and I saw you take your NyQuil shot about 20 minutes ago, so I think we better wrap this thing up. He's Kyle Theige. Follow him on Twitter at Kyle Theige. I'm Dane at DaneMooreProductions. Until sometime later this weekend with Britt. He's Kyle. I'm Dane. Peace out.
How I'm feeling, man, I hope it never stop, yeah. Green and hot so you can find me in the crowd, yeah. Don't let standards ever bring you down, yeah.